They say time heals all wounds, that if you just wait long enough, the pain softens, the scars fade, and the pieces of you find their way back together. But what if the person helping you heal, the one holding you, soothing you, promising to keep you afloat, is the same one cutting you deeper when you're not looking? What if the hands wiping your tears are the same hands sneaking behind your back? My name is Claire. I'm 32 years old, and this is the ugliest story I'll ever tell. I thought divorce would be the breaking point, that the moment I signed those papers, my hand shaking as my life reduced itself to ink on a page, would be the hardest thing I'd ever endure. Because when you marry someone, you don't just commit to a person. You commit to a future, a family, an entire version of life that feels safe. And when it collapses, you don't just lose them. You lose everything you thought was yours. But divorce wasn't the end. It wasn't even the worst part. The real heartbreak came after. Because when I was at my lowest, drowning in grief, I leaned on the one person I thought would never leave me, my sister. Let's just call her Tessa. She was my anchor when Ryan, my ex-husband, walked away. She held me through sleepless nights, poured me wine when I couldn't stop crying, told me I wasn't a failure. She whispered that his mistakes didn't define me, that she would never let me go through this alone. And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my sister. She had been beside me since birth. My confidant, my best friend, the person who knew all my fears and secrets. But here's the cruel truth. The same sister who held me while I mourned my broken vows was already slipping into my husband's bed. And that's why I'm telling this story. Because betrayal by a spouse can shatter you. But betrayal by blood, it erases you. When people ask how I met Ryan, I usually laugh and say, not the most romantic story. There was no love at first sight moment, no dramatic sweep off my feet. We met at a friend's barbecue, both of us awkwardly standing by the drinks table, making small talk about how much we hated small talk. He wasn't flashy. He didn't overwhelm me with charm or grand gestures. He was steady, predictable, the kind of man who kept his word and showed up early rather than late. After years of men who thrived on chaos, who kept me guessing and gasping for scraps of love, Ryan felt like stability. I remember asking him once what he wanted for the future. Without hesitation, he said, a home, a wife, a family, a life that feels safe. That word, safe, hooked me. It was everything I'd been craving. Within a year, we were inseparable. He met my friends, my father, my coworkers. But the approval I cared about most came from my sister. Tessa had always been my benchmark for people. She could read someone in seconds, see through facades, catch the details I missed. When she met Ryan, she hugged me afterward and whispered, "He's a good one, Claire. Don't mess this up." That was the green light I needed. If Tessa trusted him, I could let myself trust him completely. Our wedding wasn't extravagant, but it was beautiful. An intimate ceremony in a garden, string lights above us, roses in the air. I wore a simple dress, nothing flashy, just something that felt like me. And when I walked down the aisle, Ryan looked at me like I was his entire world. But what I remember just as vividly was Tessa, sitting in the front row, tears streaming, clutching tissues. She mouthed, "I'm so proud of you." The first years of marriage were exactly what I thought they'd be. We bought a townhouse, painted the walls together, argued over furniture, laughed when the sofa didn't fit through the door. We built a little life. Nothing perfect, but ours. And Tessa was woven into every piece of it. Sunday dinners with her on one side and Ryan on the other. Shopping trips, random Wednesday nights drinking tea at my kitchen table. That was my foundation. A steady husband, a steadfast sister. One gave me vows, the other gave me blood. And standing between them, I thought I was safe. If I had to point to the first crack, it didn't arrive with a bang. It was quieter than that, like a drip in the ceiling you barely notice until the floor is already wet. Ryan started coming home late. At first, it was the occasional late night at work. "The client's being difficult," he'd say, or "the project's a nightmare." I believed him. Of course I did. He had always been the man who showed up, the one who kept his promises. Why would I doubt him now? But the late nights multiplied. Dinners went cold. Conversations turned short, clipped, mechanical. He wasn't cruel. He was just absent. And sometimes absence hurts more than cruelty. Cruelty is obvious. Absence feels like you're screaming into a void, waiting for an echo that never comes. I would sit on the couch, scrolling my phone, glancing at the clock, telling myself not to nag. When he finally came through the door, I'd smile too brightly, kiss his cheek, ask about his day. His answers got smaller and smaller until they weren't really answers at all. The first time I broke down over it, I didn't go to him. I went to Tessa. She showed up at my apartment with wine and that fierce, protective energy she'd always had. I cried into her lap, confessing how lonely I felt even though I was married. She stroked my hair and whispered, "Claire, he's stressed. Don't push him. Men shut down when life feels heavy. It's not about you." Her words soothed me. If Tessa, who knew me better than anyone, believed Ryan was just under pressure, then maybe I really was overreacting. So I silenced the voice in my gut that whispered, "This isn't right. This isn't him." I chose her version of the truth over my own instincts. Weeks blurred into months. I ate alone, slept alone, lived beside a man who felt more like a ghost. When I tried to reach him, he snapped back, "You twist everything into drama. This is why I can't even talk to you anymore." That cut deeper than any confession. He made me feel like I was crazy just for noticing. Not long after, the paperwork was signed. Cold, sterile, final. My hand shook as I wrote my name, erasing years of my life with one stroke of a pen. Ryan walked out without looking back, and I told myself at least I still had Tessa. I had no idea I was leaning on the very person holding the knife. When the ink on the divorce papers dried, I thought I'd drown in silence. Every corner of my apartment echoed like a reminder that I was alone, but Tessa filled the gaps. She showed up with takeout and bottles of wine. She kicked off her shoes, curled on my couch, and promised, "I'm not leaving you to go through this alone." Some nights she even stayed over, claiming she didn't want me waking up to an empty bed. We fell into a rhythm. Wine nights where I laughed through tears. Mornings where she cooked eggs while I dragged myself to the shower. She folded my laundry, lit candles, reminded me I wasn't broken. "You'll find yourself again. He didn't deserve you." For a while, I let myself believe she was stitching me back together, that maybe, just maybe, I was going to survive this. But then came the slips. I'd vent about Ryan bailing on counseling, and she'd say, "Yeah, he told me that dinner ran late." Dinner? I'd never mentioned dinner. Another time I complained about how distant he'd been, and she replied casually, "He's been buried in that big project all week." How did she know that? Each time my stomach dropped, but I brushed it off, told myself I was misremembering, or that she must have picked it up from me without me realizing. Because this was Tessa, my sister, my anchor, the one who braided my hair before dances, held my hand at Mom's funeral, whispered, "You're strong enough," when I fell apart. So instead of questioning her, I questioned myself. Don't be paranoid. She's your sister. She's helping. That became my mantra. The lie I repeated to drown out the voice inside me that whispered the truth. The first real crack didn't come from me. It came from someone else. A mutual friend, let's call her Jenna, pulled me aside one afternoon, shifting uncomfortably before blurting, "Claire, I saw Ryan's car outside Tessa's place. Really late. I thought you should know." I laughed too quickly, too loud. "They're probably just talking," I said, brushing it off before Jenna could look at me with pity. But my heart was pounding. That night, I couldn't shake it. I kept replaying her words, convincing myself Jenna must have been mistaken. Until the next morning, when I drove past Tessa's apartment on my way to work, and there it was, Ryan's car, parked right out front. Unmistakable. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my hands went numb. Proof. Still, when I confronted Tessa later, my voice trembling, asking why Ryan's car was at her place, she didn't flinch. She didn't stammer. She didn't even look guilty. She rolled her eyes. "Claire, you're traumatized. You're projecting. You see betrayal everywhere because of what he did to you." Her confidence was chilling. She spun it so smoothly I almost believed her. "He probably just stopped by to talk," she added, her tone calm, measured, patronizing. "You know how he is. He hates loose ends. Don't twist it into something it's not." For a moment, I wondered if she was right. Maybe grief had warped my brain. Maybe I was chasing shadows. Because that's the cruelty of gaslighting. It makes you mistrust your own heartbeat. Driving home that night, tears blurred the road. I kept whispering, "You're not crazy. You saw his car." But another voice hissed back, "Or maybe you are." And that's where she had me trapped. Between my instincts screaming something was wrong, and my sister insisting I was imagining it, I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. Because admitting the alternative, that my sister was lying, would mean I'd already lost everything. The thing about proof is that it doesn't wait for the right time. It doesn't soften the blow. It just lands in your lap like a grenade, tearing through whatever lies you've been clinging to. For me, it came one sleepless night. I fumbled for my phone on the coffee table, knocked it to the floor, and when I picked it up, a notification glowed on the screen. A voicemail I hadn't noticed before. From Ryan. My stomach flipped. We hadn't spoken in months. Hands trembling, I pressed play. His voice filled the room. Low, urgent. "I'm outside your place. I don't want Claire to see me here again. Call me when she's asleep." The timestamp made my blood run cold. It wasn't new. It was from months earlier, back when I was still his wife. The room spun. This wasn't betrayal after the divorce. This was betrayal during... I called Tessa before I could talk myself out of it. My voice shook as I said, "I know." Silence. Then a shaky exhale. "Claire, don't," I snapped. "Don't twist this. I have the voicemail. He was at your place, while I was still married." No denial, no excuses, just silence thick enough to suffocate me. Until finally, she whispered the words that hollowed me out completely. "It wasn't recent." 3 words that shattered everything. I pressed the phone to my ear, barely breathing. "How long?" Another pause. Then, "Months. Maybe longer." I thought I'd scream, rage, throw things across the room. But I didn't. I just crumpled onto the bed, the truth sinking into me like ice water. It wasn't just betrayal. It was replacement. While I was fighting for my marriage, pouring myself into saving something I thought was broken by stress, my sister was already standing in my place. While I cried in her arms, she was sneaking into his. And the worst part, she didn't even sound sorry. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said, voice cracking. "We connected. I didn't want to hurt you." Didn't want to hurt me. As if every stolen night, every whispered lie hadn't been a choice. That night, I realized the truth. My husband hadn't just left me. My sister had already replaced me. People expect fireworks when betrayal is exposed, screaming matches, broken dishes, ultimatums shouted through tears. But when the knife comes from the 2 people you trusted most, there's no energy left for fire, just ashes. So I didn't scream. I didn't demand explanations I'd already heard. I didn't waste another ounce of myself begging them to understand the pain they caused. I chose silence. Ryan was the easy one. We were already divorced, the legal ties already cut. I blocked his number, deleted his emails, stopped looking at his social media like it held answers. He became what he truly was underneath all those vows and promises, a stranger. Tessa was harder. Cutting off your sister isn't like cutting off a friend. It means cutting through childhood memories, holidays, shared laughter, family photos where she's always by your side. But what choice did I have? Every memory of her was poisoned now. She tried at first. Texts, calls, apologies that sounded more like excuses. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want to hurt you." But her words meant nothing anymore. They were just the echo of every lie she told while holding me together with one hand and tearing me apart with the other. So I blocked her too. No more wine nights, no more late night comfort, no more pretending she was the person I thought she was. Because the truth is, sometimes survival doesn't come from fighting, it comes from absence, from silence. Not as revenge, not as punishment, but as the only way left to keep breathing. Therapy became my lifeline. Week after week, I spilled out the guilt, the shame of missing the signs, the endless replay of conversations that now felt poisoned. One day, my therapist looked me in the eye and said, "Claire, trusting isn't weakness. Betrayal is not your fault." For the first time, I felt the weight on my chest start to lift. I began taking small steps to reclaim my life, rearranging the apartment, painting a wall a bold color Ryan would have hated, buying new sheets, new dishes, small things that felt like mine alone. I stopped pouring 2 glasses of wine out of habit and started savoring one. I learned to sleep in silence, not as emptiness, but as peace. Piece by piece, I started listening to myself again. To my instincts, the ones I had silenced for so long in the name of trust. They hadn't been wrong. I just hadn't wanted to hear them. And slowly, I realized something important. Betrayal doesn't always come from the enemy. Sometimes it comes from the one hugging you while you cry. That was Ryan. That was Tessa. But me? I'm still here. I won't pretend I'm fully healed. Healing isn't a finish line you cross. It's a choice you make every day to keep moving forward instead of looking back. But I know this. I'd rather walk forward in truth, even alone, than ever again be comforted by lies.